So UFC on ABC4, Rozenstruik versus Almeida is going to be taking place this weekend, and I have looked into the fights, and I've got some final predictions for you guys. My picks haven't really changed, but I've definitely got a few more things to say about each individual fight, and it does start with Jessica Rose Clark versus Tainara Lisboa. I am picking Jessica Rose Clark. I almost feel tempted to pick Tainara Lisboa because everybody else is, but I'm going to stick with Jessica Rose Clark in this one here. I don't really know why I'm trusting her to get the win here because she hasn't really done anything to prove that she should be able to beat Tainara Lisboa. But at the end of the day, Tainara Lisboa truly hasn't really fought anyone that is like the level of Jessica Rose Clark, because Jessica Rose Clark has been in the UFC for a while. She does have UFC level wins. You know, Sarah Alpar hasn't aged that well, but the win over Jocelyn Edwards has. And I think Jessica Rose Clark might be more well-rounded. Like, I know Tainara Lisboa is the Muay Thai world champion. A long time ago that was. I know she's fought even Valentina Shevchenko. I believe that was in kickboxing, or maybe it was Muay Thai. And I know that she does have submission wins, and Jessica Rose Clark and her last two fights have shown probably some of the worst submission defense we've probably ever seen in the UFC, but I'm just going to trust her, man. I'm just going to trust her. I think that on the feet, Lisboa will probably be able to land better shots, but Jessica Rose Clark's a pretty good striker as well, right? Like, she started out as a striker, and then she just found success in the wrestling, and then she decided that she wanted to wrestle. I think she should wrestle on this one here against Lisboa, and I think she would have success if she can stay safe, and I think she will be able to stay safe. You know, this is not Julia Stoliarenko, who, although is like pretty terrible, and that is one of the most embarrassing wins you can have on your record, is still pretty good grappling, right? And then Stephanie Egger, there's no shame in losing to Stephanie Egger by submission. There really isn't. Stephanie Egger is a great grappler. So I've got Clark by decision. Everyone's on Lisboa. I'm not nervous about that pick, but I am still going to pick Jessica Rose Clark. Gabe Green is taking on Brian Battle, and I am on the Gabe Green side. I'm seeing a lot of people split on this one here. I'm seeing 50% of people, give or take, on Green, 50% of people, give or take, on Battle. I am on the Gabe Green side. I do understand that Brian Battle is a very good grappler if the fight does get taken to the ground, but it was somehow nullified by Renat Fakhrenadov, which does kind of put a lot of doubt in a lot of people's mind, including myself, because how good is Brian Battle's takedown defense really? Like, I know Brian Battle did beat Andrei Petroski on the Ultimate Fighter, and that is a pretty good win, and it has aged pretty well, but Gabe Green is a guy that will be able to kind of take advantage of that, you know what I mean? Because Gabe Green can push a pace, he can make the fights a little bit scrappy, he can make the fights how he wants it to be, like putting the fight in the clinch. He does like to clinch, and he does like to go for takedowns on occasion as well. I do think Battle might be the more dangerous striker, and I think maybe just in pure danger when it comes to the grappling. I think he might be more dangerous in the grappling, but I do think Gabe Green will be able to control this fight and fight the fight that he wants to. I think he can control Battle in the clinch. I think he can take Battle down if he needs to as well, and I think he can find success in this matchup. I do believe that Gabe Green can kind of nullify what Battle was going to try and do in this fight, which probably will be trying to kickbox against Gabe Green, or maybe even offensively grapple himself. But I think Gabe Green, you know, there's been a blueprint written to defeat Brian Battle now, and that was only 3 months ago. That was not a long time ago. It's not like Brian Battle lost to Hanat 6 months ago and he's able to make rapid improvements over that period of time. He's kind of making a pretty quick comeback, and Gabe Green, you know, fresh in the mind that Battle can be taken down and controlled. I can definitely just see Gabe Green kind of using a similar game plan. Jeon Kim taking on Mandy Boom. There's not really much more to say. I thought I was pretty harsh on my breakdown of Mandy Boom, and turns out I'm not. I think kind of everyone knows that Mandy Baum is a terrible fighter and has absolutely no idea what she's doing. So I'm kind of just going to talk about her as such. And in the breakdown, initially, I was a little bit more respectful, but after seeing everybody else trash Mandy Baum, I've got no shame in doing it as well. Mandy Baum genuinely has no idea what she's doing. There's a reason why I picked her to lose against Victoria Leonardo, who's one of the worst fighters on the roster. Mandy Baum, she's got absolutely no idea what she's doing. I said that 3 times before, but she's kind of fighting like she thinks she's Floyd Mayweather in there. Like, she's doing like shoulder rolls, and then she'll kind of throw something, and then she'll kind of showboat a little bit, and it's like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? Like what are you doing? She's terrible. Mandy Baum is terrible, and she doesn't even have good cardio as well to keep a pace, and she doesn't even have power that she can rely on. Like, she's not like a first round KO or bust fighter. She's a who knows how she's going to win. I know she went 7-0. In fact, some wins over in Bellator as well, which might just be the biggest fluke in MMA history, honestly, because she's genuinely terrible. And Jeon Kim, who is on a 4-fight losing streak, is gonna make her look like she's got no idea what she's doing. Jeon Kim is actually a pretty good striker. I think she's been robbed in at least one of these losses here, and she's got good volume, she's got good striking, she's got good technique, and she's going to be able to out-volume and outland Mandy Bomb for kind of the duration of the fight. I mean, Mandy Bomb just lost to Victoria Leonardo, who, Victoria Leonardo, if you go to her profile and you go to her fights, Victoria Leonardo gets bullied in the cage. You know what I mean? Victoria Leonardo was bullied by Melissa Gatto. She was bullied by Manon Fiorot. It's just, she was knocked out by Erin Blanchfield with a head kick. Like, this just doesn't happen. You know what I mean? And Mandy Bomb just lost to her. So, yeah, Jeon Kim's going to beat her up by decision. If Mandy Bomb somehow manages to win, I'm not going to take anything back either, because everything I said is true. Natan Levy versus Pete Rodriguez. This is a very, very interesting one, honestly. I'm seeing a lot of people on Pete Rodriguez. I've seen too many people on Pete Rodriguez, but I am still on Natan Levy in this matchup. I'm not that confident in Natan Levy. I was initially very confident, but the fact that so many people are on Pete and so many people think that he can get it done does scare me a lot, because Natan Levy, there actually is like a very good chance that he manages to fumble this, because this is a very winnable matchup for Natan Levy if he chooses to fight a smart fight. Do I think he's going to choose to fight a smart fight? Probably not. You know what I mean? Because Pete Rodriguez, he's a pure boxer for the most part. He's a striker for the most part. We've never seen him wrestle. We've never seen him taken down as a professional. We don't know what he's like off his back. We don't know if he's got good grappling. We don't know if he's got good wrestling. We just don't know, right? Natan Levy has proven that he's got good wrestling, and he's proven that he's got good grappling as well, but he doesn't wrestle until he gets hurt. You know, it took him about a round and a half before he wrestled against Genaro Valdez, and a similar sort of story against Mike Breeden. Natan Levy needs to wrestle more often. He needs to start wrestling against Pete Rodriguez. If Natan Levy doesn't shoot for a takedown within the first 90 seconds, within the first 2 minutes of the first round, I'm going to start worrying a little bit, because Natan Levy is hittable on the feet, and he doesn't seem to wrestle until he gets hurt, and that's a big red flag. That's very worrying, especially in this kind of matchup. But I do believe that Natan Levy should be able to offensively wrestle against Pete Rodriguez, especially if he chooses to. If he doesn't choose to, you probably will get knocked out. But even then, on the feet, Natan Levy has pretty good style to maybe deal with Pete Rodriguez's boxing, because he is like a karate base. He does throw a lot of kicks. He does kind of strike from range as well. But I do believe that Levy's going to win. I think he might win by submission, just because we've got no idea what Pete Rodriguez looks like on the ground. So I'm going to go with Levy by submission. But it's going to be interesting. We don't know what Pete Rodriguez looks like at 155. We don't know what he looks like if he gets taken down. There's so many questions in this matchup. And there's a lot of questions in this matchup too. Cody Stamann taking on Douglas Silva de Andrade. I thought Cody Stamann lost against Luan Lacerda, and the majority of people on MMA Decisions also thought that Cody Stamann lost to Luan Lacerda, which is very interesting, because if you go to my UFC 283 breakdown, the way that I broke down Luan Lacerda was that he's a very good grappler, but he doesn't really have a means to get the fight to the ground, and he's a terrible striker. Like, he's an absolutely awful striker. And then all of a sudden, Luan Lacerda goes out and outstrikes Cody Stamann across 3 rounds and beats him on the feet, in my opinion, and the opinion of many other people. Which is so odd. It's so weird that Cody Stamann arguably lost to Luan Lacerda, who, if you do watch his regional fights, genuinely fights not that great. Like, he's not that good at striking, and that's a little bit of a red flag for me, especially when I'm picking Cody Stamann in this matchup, because I think he can work the wrestling and grappling. He's taking on an older Douglas Silva de Andrade, who's a very dangerous striker. He's a pretty dangerous grappler as well, but I think that Cody Stamann, if he chooses to wrestle, because he didn't choose to wrestle against Luan Lacerda, which I think might have been a bit of a mistake, although he did get the decision, I do still think that it was a mistake that he chose to not wrestle with Lacerda. I think he can wrestle here, and he should wrestle here, because that's kind of his base. That's kind of what he does. Cody Stamann does wrestle. He does mix up his boxing with his wrestling quite well when he does mix the wrestling with the boxing. And I'm kind of going to go with that there. So I am trusting Cody Stamann to box and wrestle simultaneously in the matchup. And I do believe that is what he's going to do to win a decision. I think if Silva de Andrade wins, it's by knockout. I don't see Silva de Andrade winning the decision. I think if he's going to beat Stamann, it's going to have to be by knockout. So I'm going to go with Stamann by decision. I think he's a minute winner as well. And I like Carl Williams in the next matchup as well. He's a massive favourite. I think he's going to get a finish. I think you can get really good odds on Carl Williams inside the distance, just because he has won his last 2 fights by decision. But in this matchup here, Chase Sherman, he is a striker, but he's not a one-shot KO power kind of striker. And then on top of that, he doesn't have anything when he gets taken down, and that has been proven multiple times in his career. When you take down Chase Sherman, he doesn't offer a lot from his back. He doesn't have the best get-up game either, and that's what Carl Williams is going to do. He's going to wrestle Chase Sherman. He's going to try and take Chase Sherman to the ground. He's going to try and get on top, and he's going to try and land a lot of ground and pound. He might even go for a submission. He's never got a submission in his career, but he honestly might go for a submission against Chase Sherman. But I do believe Carl Williams just takes Chase Sherman down and lands a lot of ground and pound. We saw him have a lot of success against Lucas Brzezinski with the wrestling and also with the striking as well. He almost knocked him out on the feet at one point, and he did gas out, he did slow down a lot, which is maybe a question mark for the future of Carl Williams. But I think if Carl Williams can take down Chase Sherman and then get on top, I think he should be pretty safe to win this matchup, especially inside the distance. So give me Carl Williams to win by ground and pound TKO in the second round. Matt Brown taking on Court McGee. I'm looking forward to this one. It should be a very fun fight. As I said, I am looking forward to it. It's going to be good. Matt Brown is the pick as well. Not that confident, but he is the underdog. Probably my I think he might be the only underdog pick on the card for me. And the problem is, what Court McGee does quite well is Matt Brown's biggest weakness. Matt Brown's biggest weakness throughout his whole career, although he's a dangerous dude, has been takedown defense. He does not have the best takedown defense, and he hasn't had the best takedown defense throughout his entire MMA career, really. But he's dangerous, man. Matt Brown is dangerous, and I think he actually might be able to knock out Court McGee. Court McGee, for the very first time ever, got knocked out by Jeremiah Wells. I do believe he's got a KO loss way back in his career, but that was like the first time he's ever been knocked out. And Jeremiah Wells just put him out, you know what I mean? That was a bad KO loss, especially at the age of 37 at the time. Now he's an older guy. I don't think the chin's cracked, but I do believe Matt Brown will be able to crack the chin. You know, if anyone's going to do it, it's Matt Brown. And yeah, I'm a fan of Matt Brown. I like Matt Brown. I think he was on like the Ultimate Fighter Season 5. Or something absolutely ridiculous, like something so long ago. The Ultimate Fighter Season 7 in 2008. Matt Brown has been in the UFC for, 15 years now? Dude, Matt Brown's just a legend, man. And look at his career too. Like, he's had such a legendary career. Went on a massive win streak. Took the O off Stephen Thompson way back in the day. I mean, he fought some good guys, right? Fought Chris Lytle. Far out. Who else did he fight? Like Johnny Hendricks, I believe. He fought Lawler. He fought Maya. You go through, and then recently he's fought some good guys as well. He beat Diego Sanchez in 2017. Like, I'm a Matt Brown fan, and you better watch the Ultimate Fighter Season 7, and you'll become a Matt Brown fan as well. Matt Brown is so awesome on that show, man. I'm sorry, I didn't really give a breakdown for this fight. I'm picking Matt Brown. I'm picking Matt Brown by KO. I love Matt Brown, man. He's a legend of the sport, in my opinion. Probably not a Hall of Fame worthy career, but a legendary career. You know what I mean? I'm sure we could find something that puts Matt Brown in the UFC, right? In the UFC Hall of Fame. I'm sure we could. Anyway, Tim Means versus Alex Morono. I do like Alex Morono here. Alex Morono's a good striker. I mean, he's fought, I believe it was Santiago Ponzinibbio, and I believe it's like 4-5 days notice. He was beating Ponzinibbio as well. I believe he knocked down Ponzinibbio in the first, and he knocked down Ponzinibbio in the second. But then he got knocked out himself in the third round. That was just so unlucky for Morono, because that would have really been a win that would have elevated his career. And he actually owns his own gym. I believe his gym might be this Gracie Barra, the Woodlands gym. I'm not too sure, but I do know that he owns his own gym and he coaches his own fighters. And on top of being a good striker, this guy is like, I believe he's like a very good black belt in jiu-jitsu. Like, he's got a very good like rank, I guess you could say, of black belt in jiu-jitsu. Like, he's a seriously good grappler as well on top of that. Tim Means, I like Tim Means, man. Tim Means is an older dude. He's 39 years old. He did have a good fight against Max Griffin. And I think that fight was a lot closer than people like to give credit for, because a lot of people think that Max Griffin clearly won that fight, but if you do watch it back, Tim Means does have an argument. He genuinely does. I do think Griffin won, but you really could argue the fight for Means. But I think that Morono, man, I think he can outstrike Tim Means, who does have a big size. Well, not really a size advantage, but a reach advantage. And Tim Means might even want to grapple here. But if he wants to grapple with Morono, I think that's a bad idea. I like Morono's grappling. I like his striking as well. In the front of a crowd, I think he might be able to find a finish in this one here. So I actually might go with Morono by submission. He's not a finishing guy. He does win a lot of decisions, especially in the UFC. But I'm just going to go with submission just to kind of make it interesting, right? Maybe like a 3rd round submission for Alex Moreno. It's going to be an interesting fight, though. I look forward to it. Now, Carlos Ulberg taking on Ihor Potieria. I'm going with Carlos Ulberg, and he's a very confident pick of mine. Ihor Potieria, he's just sloppy, man. He's just sloppy. You know, his best performance, in my opinion, of Ihor Potieria's entire career was actually his Dana White's Contender Series fight against Lucas Sadolski, where kind of everything that Ihor Potieria does was kind of displayed in that matchup, and that's exactly what he does. He just runs forward with kind of no regard for his own safety, which is why he's an exciting fighter. So I've got to readjust my position, my chair to do this. And he runs forward in this fight specifically, and he's just throwing. He's just throwing like this, and he's landing, dude. And that's actually really good game plan against Lucas Sadolski, because Lucas Sadolski was a guy that was very low volume at the start of the fight, and then he built up later on. That's his whole style of the fight, so you could tell that Ihor Potieria did his research for that matchup. I did pick Sadolski because there was no tape on Potieria whatsoever. You could not find a single thing on the guy, but yeah, it was a good fight, and then he knocked him out, and he made me look dumb. And then he took on Nicolai Negumereanu, got absolutely smacked up, and then he took on the retiree in Shogun Rua. But Carlos Ulberg, very good striker, very good technical fighter. I don't think he's going to get rushed by Potieria, and even if he does, I think Carlos Ulberg can throw straight shots down the middle as Potieria is rushing in. I think even then, he can keep his distance. He can throw a push kick, you know what I mean? He can clinch if he needs to as well. I think Potieria, he just doesn't have the skill set to be able to knock out a guy like Carlos Ulberg, in my opinion, because Carlos Ulberg truly is a very good technical kickboxer. Potieria, the way that he's going to beat guys is overwhelm them and swarm them and land that KO blow. He won't do that to Carlos Ulberg, so I'm going to go with Carlos Ulberg to win by knockout himself. Potieria is a very tough guy. You know, we saw that in the Negumereanu fight where he took a lot of damage, but I like Ulberg to knock him out. I don't know if he's going to knock him out, but I think he's going to hurt him, and it's just going to be like a finish, like a TKO finish, but it should be a good fight. Daniel Rodriguez taking on Ian Machado Gary. I'm going with Ian Gary, and the reason why I'm going with Ian Gary is it's just such a favourable matchup for him, you know what I mean? Like, Daniel Rodriguez, a boxing style for the most part, and Ian Gary's just a really good kickboxer, and he fights smart. He can fight from range. I know both guys are going to have a very similar reach, if not the same reach in this matchup, but in Gary, you know, he can chop up at the legs of D-Rod. Like, where is he? Li Jingliang. I thought Li Jingliang won, but whatever. Gary can chop at the legs of D-Rod, you know what I mean? That's what Li Jingliang was doing. I think there's definitely a path to slow down D-Rod early by landing a lot of leg kicks. And then, even then on top of that, Ian Gary is just a very good technical kickboxer that fights from range. And I do think he's underrated. And I personally underrated him for a very long time. In fact, I underrated him until the Kenan Song fight. And you could say, oh, well, he got knocked down. He did get knocked down, but he still managed to come back, you know what I mean? Still got up. And he still, like, put on a fantastic performance against Kenan Song. But, you know, like, against Jordan Williams, he was losing until he got the knockout. And then against Darian Weeks, that was a close fight. That was a fight closer than I think the UFC wanted it to be. And then against Gabe Green, once again, it was still a pretty close and competitive fight. But I feel like he kind of put it all together against Kenan Song, and he put on a really good performance and eventually did finish. The very powerful striker in Song Kenan. Now he's taking on a big step up in competition, but stylistically, this is a good one for Ian Gary. I think he can kind of keep Daniel Rodriguez at range and just out kickbox him for 3 rounds. Kind of like Li Jingliang did, except more convincingly. I think he's going to land better shots. He's going to be landing more kicks. He's going to be landing kicks to the legs, kicks to the body. He's going to land good shots. I don't think he finishes D-Rod, but I do think he beats him convincingly on the feet. And I think this is kind of like the performance where people go, yeah, like Ian Gary's legit. Because a lot of people think Ian Gary might be a fraud. I don't think he's going to get fraud checked in this matchup. I think he gets it done. And I think he gets it done by decision. And I think he looks good doing it too. I'm going to go 30-27. I think he wins all 3 rounds and does it impressively. Anthony Smith taking on Johnny Walker. You've kind of, actually, I was going to say you kind of just got to go with Johnny Walker in this one, but you actually don't. You actually could pick Anthony Smith, but I do like Johnny Walker in this matchup. I think Walker's actually going to want to keep this one standing, whereas Smith probably wants to grapple, but I just don't really like picking Smith anymore. And it's weird because he did go on a 3-fight winning streak, but that was over Ryan Spann, and we kind of know Ryan Spann's not that good. I know he knocked out Reyes recently, but Ryan Spann, he's not that good. Jimmy Crute as well, that was like the injury, but he looked really good in that fight. I'll give him that credit, but it was 2 years ago. And then Devin Clark has kind of gone like up and down, but mainly down since that fight. So there's a lot of like asterisks on that 3-fight win streak, right? Whereas Johnny Walker, there's a lot of asterisks on his entire career. Whereas like he injured himself early on, just doing like that dumb celebration, and then he got knocked out and showed he's got a really bad chin. But then he took some good shots against Santos, but lost a decision. And then that fight's kind of aged badly. But maybe Santos was on something because he popped for PFL. But he got KO'd by Jamal Hill, but now there's not really a lot of shame in that. And then he beat Kutalaba because he chose to grapple, and he chose to not grapple against Craig, kept that on the feet and knocked him out. I think it's going to be a similar matchup to Paul Craig. I think Johnny Walker's just going to knock him out. I think Johnny Walker's going to knock out Anthony Smith. I think Smith has been KO'd a lot in his career as well. Yeah, Smith has been slept 9 times in his career, right? And one of those was a really like damaging TKO loss to Glover Teixeira, where he was losing teeth. It was pretty bad. So I actually am going to go with Johnny Walker by knockout, and probably in the first round as well. I think he knocks him out early. So give me Walker by first round KO. If Smith wants to win this fight, he's going to have to take the fight to the ground. I don't really see Smith knocking him out on the feet, although Walker does have a terrible chin. I just don't think Smith lands it. I don't think Smith finishes him, right? Now we move on. Jairzinho Rozenstruik versus Jailton Almeida. Rozenstruik really wants to win this fight, man. You go on his Instagram, you go on his Twitter, Rozenstruik's kind of like posting these like photos of him like standing like this, like he is in that photo, and like next to a train, and the train is Jailton Almeida's face, as in like he's a hype train. It's so funny. But I do think Jailton Almeida wins. But I love Rozenstruik kind of just like being funny and like kind of putting his personality out there, that he kind of is a pretty funny dude. I like that from Rozenstruik. It is funny. He does seem like a pretty funny guy, honestly. I do love the memes that he's posting. But aside from that, let's get serious and let's talk about the fight. Rozenstruik's a kickboxer, very good kickboxer as well. I think he went like 88-8 or something insane like that in kickboxing. Transition to MMA, he's had good success, right? Like he's made it to the top of the UFC heavyweight division. I believe he was very highly ranked at one point. He did fight Francis Ngannou, which you know, he did get knocked out in, but he still like fought Ngannou when Ngannou was in his prime. And like Rozenstruik, I think he's got a chance here, right? I am picking Almeida, and I'm picking Almeida by submission, but Rozenstruik really could do something, because Jailton Almeida, every time he does go for a takedown, and I mentioned this, I believe it was in my shorts video a few days ago when I made that. Every time Jailton Almeida goes for a takedown, he does throw a front kick, and then he'll duck in for a double leg. He did it against Anton Turkalj, and he did it against Shamil Abdurakhimov. And Shamil Abdurakhimov was like kind of loading up a left hook to counter it, and I feel like Rozenstruik probably could do the same thing, because Rozenstruik has a better kickboxing ability than Abdurakhimov. So as soon as Almeida throws that front kick, I think Rozenstruik will plan a knee. Maybe he will plan an uppercut, you know what I mean? But I do think Almeida is going to get the fight to the ground. And I think once he gets to the ground, it's just going to be... It's going to be night and day, right? Like, Rozenstruik did show get-up game against Curtis Blades, but Jailton Almeida doesn't grapple like Curtis Blades. He doesn't just kind of be heavy on top. The way that Jailton Almeida grapples is he's like a jiu-jitsu guy at heavyweight. It's insane the way that this guy grapples and the way how strong he is as well, and just got really good grappling technique, like in general. Like he's a jiu-jitsu guy that makes it work in the heavyweight division. And these heavyweights, man, they're not used to this. You know, we've never seen this happen in the heavyweight division before. And I do like Jailton Almeida to win. I've picked Jailton Almeida in every single one of his fights, including the Dana White's Contender Series fight, which I believe he was the underdog in, against Nasruddinov. He was plus 165 in that matchup, and I picked him, and I do have proof that I picked him as well, because it was on my YouTube channel, I believe. So I picked Almeida to win that fight against Nasruddinov, and then I picked him ever since, and he's been massive favourite ever since then. But I picked him as the dog, so I'm kind of like a day one. I'm a day one Almeida guy, right? You can't just say I'm jumping on a hype train now. I'm a day one Jailton Almeida fan, and I think he's going to submit Rozenstruik. You could go for a ground and pound TKO, but when it gets to the ground, in the pure grappling, these guys just aren't going to be competitive. It's not going to be close. Almeida's going to be a significantly better grappler than Jairzinho Rozenstruik, and I do believe that Jailton Almeida will manage to get the submission. There's a ground and pound TKO is likely, but I'm going to go with submission. I think submission in the first 2 rounds. This fight isn't going to go to the third. Rozenstruik either knocks out Almeida in the first 2 rounds, or Almeida finishes Rozenstruik in the first 2 rounds. This fight ain't going to the third. It's going to be good, though. And it's in front of the crowd as well, so it'll be interesting to see like what kind of pop these guys get when they walk out. Like, is Almeida a big like fan favorite? Like, do people know who Jailton Almeida is that aren't like super I don't know what to call it, like super, I guess like maybe hardcore fans, because the hardcore fans know who Jailton Almeida is, but like does like the casual fan base, you know, the guys that show up to an event every now and then, or the guys that just watch an event every now and then, do they know who Jailton Almeida is? We're gonna find out, because they probably know who Rozenstruik is, right? Like Rozenstruik, he's got a few UFC fights, he's got a few viral KOs, like he KO'd Sakai in the main event of an event, KO'd Junior Dos Santos, I believe. No, that wasn't a main event, but it was on a pay-per-view. He even beat Alistair Overeem in a main event as well a long time ago. So yeah, I think people will know. People will know who Rozenstruik is, right? I feel like just people don't quite know who Almeida is. And I think people are gonna learn. I think people are gonna learn who Almeida is. I'm looking at Rozenstruik right now, dude. It would have been so fun to follow Rozenstruik's career. I wish I paid more attention, right? Because he knocked out Crowder in 9 seconds, and then he knocked out Arlovsky in 29 seconds. That's absolutely ridiculous. Man, that would have been fun. It would have been so fun to follow his career, but unfortunately I just wasn't like paying that much attention to him at that period of time. Anyway, I think that video is a little bit longer than it needs to be, but thank you guys for watching. If you made it this far, please do subscribe, please do like the video. I've got my BetUS link there. That's kind of it. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you for watching.